eventful weekend. We welcome you to America's Forum. I'm J.D. Hayworth.
We made it back safe and sound, J.D. It's great to be here. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in. Real quickly, let's turn to our headlines and give everybody a quick update of some stories they may have missed over the weekend. As you heard J.D. mention, Jeb Bush says many illegal immigrants are coming to the United States, quote, as an act of love. We have Dick Morris and Alan West here with us on set. We'll talk about what this could mean for any potential presidential aspirations Jeb might have coming up in 2016. Plus, an Australian ship looking for the missing Malaysia Airlines plane has picked up signals they believe could be coming from the plane's black box recorders. The pings mean what they will mean for the search coming up later in the show. And we're, of course, all still mourning those deaths in the Fort Hood shooting. This has reopened the debate about guns and mental illness in the United States. Dr. Heath King, psychoanalyst and former professor at Yale, he'll be here with us on that issue coming up later in the show.
But of course, this is our top story. As mentioned, Jeb Bush says illegal immigrants in the United States aren't committing a felony, but an act of love. The potential presidential candidate in 2016's comments at odds with the majority of his party. Governor Bush also said illegal immigration shouldn't, quote, rile people up, end quote. So the question remains, did Jeb Bush have a George Romney moment? Here with us on set, Alan West, former member of the House, and Dick Morris, skilled political commentator, columnist, and radio talk show host. Dick, let's take the historical perspective. We recall George Romney, after his Vietnam trip in '68,
Only
saying
those of us who are as old as you and me recall.
Well, and that's why we're filling in the blanks. George Romney gets home from Vietnam. He's asked about that trip. He said, well, the generals were brainwashing me. That ended his '68 campaign. Does this do the same to Jeb Bush vis-a-vis 2016?
Well, I think the comment will be very difficult for him to overcome. It's not a George Romney moment. It makes it worse. Romney said it inadvertently. It was a slip of the tongue. With Bush, this was no slip of the tongue. Right before he said it, he said, I'm going to say this and it will be on tape, and so be it. This was an act of courage on his part, perhaps inspired by his close familial connection to people from other countries. I think that it represents his true philosophy. It's a moment of some considerable political courage, but it's not an act of wisdom. It's entirely possible that people who come from other countries and come here illegally are in fact coming to provide for their families, and that is in that sense an act of love. But it's also an act that's illegal in American law and should not be rewarded but should be punished. And I think that this is the surest indication I've seen that Bush isn't running. On the other hand, if he's not running, why did he do the interview in the first place?
Well, the commemoration, the context is the 25th anniversary of his father's presidency. It's done in front of a friendly crowd at the George H.W. Bush Library, if memory serves. But Alan, let's put it to you. I know that none of us can climb inside the psyche of Governor Jeb Bush, but is it an act of love? Is it an act of love for the families who have had family members injured or killed in auto accidents where an illegal is driving, doesn't have a license, doesn't even have insurance? Is it an act of love for Americans out of work because illegals come in with a cheap, with undercutting the labor market?
Well, that's the key point that you bring up. I mean, it really does look disrespectful to the American people who are suffering under these economic conditions, who are out of work, who are seeing their wages depressed, and who are seeing their job opportunities being taken away by people who are here illegally. So where's the act of love for the American people? Then furthermore, if you're seeking to be the leader of this country and you're going to take an oath to uphold its laws and its Constitution, well, this is a constitutional republic. The number one thing is the sovereignty, and that means protecting the borders. As a matter of fact, you know, the founding fathers wrote that you're supposed to protect it from invasions across this border in the Constitution. So this is going to be very tough for a Governor Jeb Bush to overcome if he is going to seek to run for president, because the most important people that you have to have are the grassroots people. The people are going to get out there, knock on doors, do all those necessary things. And when they feel that this kind of elitist attitude about we're more so concerned about a demographic to get their vote than the American people, because you're probably going to vote for me anyhow, he's going to run into some problems.
Dick, let me return to something you said. At first you said it's an act of political courage, and then you closed out your comment saying, he's not going to run. So, an act of courage or really an act of calculation to take himself out of the race for 2016?
Well, it could be. It's always hard to draw a line at what's suicide and what's a mistake. But I do feel that. But let me talk more broadly about immigration. The Republican Party has hit on the solution, the political and the moral and the economic solution, which is to bifurcate work from citizenship, and to say it's okay to stay here, it's okay to stay here and work, but it's not okay to come in here and vote. And I think that while there is unemployment and that they do take some jobs away from other Americans, not nearly as many as the Chinese do, my feeling is that the Democratic Party wants them to vote but not work because of the unions. And the Republican Party wants them to work but not vote because of agribusiness and employers and restaurant owners and all that. And I think that by separating the two, you eliminate the irritant on the Latino vote that grandma might be deported tomorrow. On the other hand, they don't flood the rolls with 11 million new likely Democratic votes.
The fly in the ointment, Dick, is this, and it's based on previous history. Ronald Reagan signing Simpson-Mazzoli in the late 80s, that was supposed to happen. The enforcement component was not enforced by President Bush 41, by Bill Clinton, by Bush 43, or by the current president. So a failure to enforce the law takes it down. One other legal aspect. We know the left has admitted, Madam Justice Sotomayor, when she was a federal judge at the Duke University Law School, said, let's just end all the pretense. We utilized the courts for our political advantage. When you have the courts suddenly deciding the Equal Protection Clause applies to illegals, voila, the left has accomplished what they're out to do, and that's the inherent danger of trying to split this, at least long-term, historically, for the preservation of the constitutional republic we know.
I think you're completely right on the subject of enforcement of the border. Not only have the past presidents, including my ex-boss, not really done that, but the stats are that lately, 98% of the people we've deported have committed real crimes here. So you can basically live here illegally without any fear of being sent home. And until there is strong border enforcement, real enforcement, as measured by results, not as certified by the government, but by the Republican border state governors, I don't think you should proceed with anything.
Of course, that was what John McCain advocated in 2008 with border governors of both parties, where you had Janet Napolitano in Arizona, Bill Richardson in New Mexico, Arnold Schwarzenegger in California, not exactly border hawks. But let me put it to you, Alan.
But now you don't. You have 3 of the 4 Republicans, and they're pretty good hawks, Perry, Martinez, and Brewer.
The latter, she may have done that at election time. As an Arizonan, I might take friendly exception, but let's get the Colonel's take on this. Final word on the border situation.
Well, I think it goes back to the song by The Who, We Won't Be Fooled Again, when you talk about 1986, what happened. So the American people want to see the enforcement. The American people want to see the border secure, first and foremost, and then you start to deal with the problem that you have internally. I think the American people want to see the taxpayer-funded benefits ended that go to illegals, because it is affecting our economy. Just last week, I believe, you had the report that came out that says 68,000 felon illegal immigrants were not deported back, and now we find out that they were including in that number people that they were turning around from the border. So what is the real ground truth here? And the comment that Governor Bush made and the ground reality that we see is happening puts the American people in the back seat.
We don't know if he's going to run yet or not, but it's clear based on these comments that he wants to have a voice in the conversation about immigration, and that's what this may be about.
Back with Hillary and the Senate when we return.
Go to the airport.